I'm Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. We're co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. On today's Freethought Matters, we are speaking with political satirist and co-creator of The Daily Show, Lizz Winstead, about her abortion rights advocacy.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces Freethought Matters, is the nation's largest association of free thinkers. That's atheists, agnostics, and other non-believers. We invite you to join us in our vital work to keep our secular government free from religious influence. Become a member at ffrf.org or ask for a complimentary copy of our newspaper, Freethought Today. Freedom depends on freethinkers. Watch prior episodes of Freethought Matters on FFRF's YouTube channel.
Can humor be used to destigmatize the very serious issue of abortion? Our guest today thinks so. Lizz Winstead is a political satirist, a pioneering woman comedian who became co-creator and head writer of Comedy Central's The Daily Show, which has won countless Emmys. In 2004, she co-founded Air America Radio, and she enlisted hosts such as Rachel Maddow, helping to further her career. Lizz has written a book, Lizz Free or Die. But in 2012, she went from simply making people laugh to helping to destigmatize abortion by founding Lady Parts Justice, now reborn as Abortion Access Front, doing stand-up around the country in support of abortion rights.
And we're pleased today's interview is a sneak preview because Lizz Winstead will be appearing in person at FFRF's upcoming 46th Annual National Convention in Madison, Wisconsin, where she'll receive FFRF's Emperor Has No Clothes Award, and she'll be speaking on Saturday, October 14th. So thank you so much for joining us today, Lizz.
Oh, thanks for having me. I could not be more excited to be here. I love your work so much because it inspires all of us to remember just exactly where moral foundations come from, and they come from within. And, escaping tyranny it's a 24/7 game, y'all.
Yeah.
So we understand that you escaped tyranny. You were brought up Catholic. At 16, you got pregnant. And I think this is a very pivotal part of your story, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those things where information not given to someone, this is the problem, is that people think that don't teach about birth control. I mean, I literally thought if I don't use birth control and have sex, I'm only committing one sin. And so I could buck the odds. It's like the way somebody thinks when you make up your own rules when you're 16. And I found myself pregnant, vulnerable, couldn't go to my parents, couldn't go to my friends. And so I wound up at one of these horrifying fake clinics that have been erected by Christian extremists. If your listeners don't know about them, they are, just to give you an idea of how many there are, there's around, after Roe, we have about 520 clinics that provide care in the country, and there's close to 4,000 of these religiously funded clinics that look like a place that might provide abortion and birth control, but really they're set up to shame someone for having sex, shame you for even considering abortion and trying to dissuade you from having abortion. They're not run by medical people. They literally order lab coats from the internet and talk to you as though they're doctors. And I'll never forget, I was there and I asked about abortion, and what they said to me, abortion is not an option. Your only options are mommy or murder. And it was terrifying, right? To have this person who was impersonating a doctor And then in the name of religion, telling me that my life was insignificant, the choices that I make were going to have me burn in hell. And it wasn't until I found an actual abortion provider who asked me about my needs, my circumstances, who I wanted to be in the world, that I realized that those people weren't out to help me, they were out to control me.
So
And that set me on my path.
we often hear these antis say that when a woman has an abortion, she feels horrible. She's made this horrible mistake. She feels like she's committed murder. How did you feel as a young woman having had a successful abortion?
Well, the interesting thing is they love to say that with no empirical data evidence. They say that. They say what I felt, which is there was a massive study done about abortion and abortion regret, and is that a thing? And it's not. 95% of the 5,000 people that they interviewed said the number one thing they experienced was relief, not regret. And so it's such an interesting thing when we talk about, they love to sort of center regret. And it's like, you can't legislate regret. You can't tell someone to have regret. If we were, like, you couldn't get married. Like, there is divorce. 50% of marriages end in divorce. So there's a lot of regret going on in everything that we do. And so we all have to make personal choices, and there may be some pain around those choices that you make, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the choice you ultimately make for yourself isn't the right choice at the time. And for me, I felt nothing but relief, and none of the things they told me I would feel, again, in the name of the deity. And so I just kept thinking, your God sucks. Get a new God, get something new, because this thing that you're worshiping is not making you a better person. And isn't that weird?
Well, and these are religious centers, and what really gets me is so many of them now are fully funded by taxpayers, depending on the state. You know,
Yes.
Abortion is illegal in many states, and yet you have publicly funded crisis pregnancy centers that are phony.
To the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, and to the tune of defunding TANF, defunding programs that actually help low-income families in need become healthier families, and defunding family planning centers. So it's really insidious. And I feel like part of the work we do at Abortion Access Front is we have a whole program called Expose Fake Clinics, and you can go to the website exposefakeclinics.com, and you can learn all about what they do, who's funding them, and work with us on exposing them. Because when you Google trying to find a place that would provide you abortion care, they own the Google searches, right? And so you Google it, it takes you a while to get past the fake centers, and they sound very real. A woman's options, a woman's choice, women's health centers, they sound very deceptive. And even their websites will say the word abortion on the website, but when you click on the pull-down menu, it will say, if you want to learn more about abortion, make an appointment at our center, right? They don't talk about it. So the number one tip for everyone is, if you're pregnant and you're vulnerable and you're looking and you see a website, an actual abortion facility will say, we provide comprehensive abortion care, flat out. They don't hide it. They don't tell you have to come in and learn about it. It's right up front on the thing. So that's just a little tip for anybody looking.
Good advice. Now, you have called the Abortion Access Front a kind of USO for abortion clinics. Why did you found it, and what does Abortion Access Front do?
So what happened was I just finished writing my book, and I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And I was in Minnesota, where I live half the time in Minnesota, half the time in Brooklyn. And I was in Minnesota finishing up the book, and it was right when, if your viewers will remember, Wendy Davis took to the floor of the Texas State House and filibustered for 13 hours wearing sneakers because the Texas anti-abortion bans had really come into place. And no media was covering it. Mainstream media was not covering it. I was watching a stream on the internet. And so I did some research, and I found that not only was Wendy Davis doing this, but there was 26 other states that had dropped the same piece of model legislation all over the country. And people didn't understand that the abortion fight was in the states. They just didn't understand where we needed to be. And so I had this aha moment where I wanted to just let folks know. And so I called up Planned Parenthood and I said, I have to drive back to Brooklyn from Minnesota in a van with my dogs, and I want to come and do fundraisers for your clinics. And they were like, I think we have a kook on the line. Like, they were like, what are you talking about? But what I did was I just became a sort of traveling evangelist for reproductive rights. And I would do comedy shows, and I would have conversations with the people who were running the clinics and the advocates on the ground. And I worked my way back to New York, and it took me about, I thought I was just going to drive back and do like 10 shows. And I did about 37 shows, and I raised $18 million
Wow.
for the advocates on the ground, independent abortion providers, Planned Parenthood. And so when I got back home, I thought, I can't just, I can make a tiny bit of change traveling around the country like in a one-woman operation. But if I started an organization that could actually get comedians and musicians to start traveling around the country and going to Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Montgomery, Alabama. You know, we did come to Madison, but we kind of didn't go to Portland and Madison, and we went really where people were needed. And so we would do shows and incorporate the local clinic and the local activist on the ground into our shows. So we'd bring 400 people into a club. We'd do a show, we'd have a conversation, and then we had almost like an activist fair in the back of the room. So you could meet everybody who was performing and who was doing the work locally and sign up to help out. And so we would grow the activist bases of these local communities to help them fight. And then the second part was the sort of Habitat for, I often say it's a USO / Habitat for Humanity kind of operation, because the second part that we do is, a lot of folks don't realize that if you're providing abortions in, Louisville, Kentucky, or, even St. Louis, Missouri, if you need a gardener, or you need your roof fixed, or you need any kind of just structural care you'd get from your community, nobody will come because you provide abortion. So we started gardening, painting, doing these sort of works projects at the clinic. And then during the show, we would tell the audience, hey, something that you may not understand about activism is it can be literally providing services to the community. So for example, I'll never forget this. I was in Oklahoma City, and the clinic was talking about how they couldn't get anybody to fix their fencing. And so I was like, look, if anybody in here does repairs, they will pay you, and you're an activist. If you park your van in front of the clinic, you're saying to your community, I support them, I want to do business with them, and I'm proud that they're in the community. And it's a light bulb moment for a lot of folks. And so it's really cool to bring community businesses, people who live in the community together with the people providing the care and the activists already starting to do the work on the ground. And so we really it's so rewarding to be able to help build, because when people are providing care and they're going to city council meetings and they're trying to lobby their local politicians and stuff, they don't have a lot of time to actually do that community outreach that's needed to grow and to get people out into the streets and get them to lobby politicians. So we're able to help them do that. And it's really rewarding.
So I want to know, during the show that you put on, what do you say? How do you make the issue funny during these shows?
So here's the thing. I think that the biggest misnomer is that the whole topic has to be funny. And the truth is, the vehicle to put on a show is what gets people in the door. So it's not necessarily that the whole night is talking about, although many comics like myself who do political satire point out the hypocrisy of the anti-abortion movement all the time. Sometimes it's just great comics who are doing their shows and then a cool conversation, almost like a talk show, so that you can have a full night of a little bit of activism, some just great laughs, and then you get to sign up and take your activism further. So I think that's the part that's really cool, is that you don't necessarily have to elevate the issue through your comedy. You can create a really amazing, entertaining environment where people can laugh and learn, and then they can get to work.
Well, we have to take a short break, Liz, but when we come back, we want to ask, how has your activism changed since the Dobbs decision? And we also want to find out a little bit more about how you co-founded Air America and The Daily Show.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist.
When I first recorded that commercial back in 2014, being openly atheist in America was still fairly uncommon. Today, the fastest growing religious group in the country is the non-religious, especially among the young. That progress is heartening, but the religious pushback is fierce and the forces of Christian nationalism are well organized. Our progress won't continue unless we work together so that reason and our secular constitution will prevail. That's why I'm asking you to join the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics working to keep state and church separate, just like our founders intended. Please join the Freedom from Religion Foundation today. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
I always thought I was a Christian. I married a good Christian lady and we're homeschooling 5 good Christian kids. In fact, we spend our Saturdays together as a good Christian family, screaming at women entering abortion clinics. When I found out about Mancestry, I was excited to log in and find out just how Christian I really am. Well, imagine my surprise to find out I'm not Christian at all. I'm a domestic terrorist. I just use good Christian values to condone violence. So I traded this sign for this one. Women burning, murdering deserve to be.
Mancestry.com. Find out the story only white male privilege can tell.
This message is brought to you by Abortion Access Front. Exposing sexist heads has never been more rewarding.
And welcome back to Freethought Matters. We're continuing our conversation with political satirist Lizz Winstead, co-founder of The Daily Show and Air America Radio, and now Abortion Access Front, using comedy for social change. And you saw one of the very funny Mancestry videos. Liz, was it fun making those silly videos?
You know, it's great. One of the things that we do at Abortion Access Front is, you know, with my background at The Daily Show and, you know, using humor to expose hypocrisy. And I love doing satires of things that people know in popular culture. So I was looking at those Ancestry.com commercials and I was like, wow, what's the lineage of some of these white supremacists? So for that one, it felt really right to do, just in the wake of our work and intersecting with all of the work. And the thing that we love so much about it is we have a research arm at Abortion Access Front, and we go deep undercover into some of these anti-abortion churches, and we join their churches and we find out what they're doing. And through traveling around the country and meeting these activist groups and going undercover, Abortion Access Front has formed the largest anti-abortion extremist database in the country. And so by following those people, we watched the bubblings up of January 6th happen. We saw them making their plans, talking about bringing arms to the Capitol. And so when they landed in Washington, D.C., we were streaming their streams and pulling down their videos before they could. And we discovered that about 30 people from the anti-abortion movement were also part of the insurrection, and we found them and then reported them to the FBI.
And you recognized them.
And so we recognized them, and before they knew they were in trouble, we were already like yanking it down and gathering the information. And so that is part of the work that I think is that people don't see that we do. That is some of the most satisfying. We also just, at the end of last year, there was 11 anti-abortion extremists who kept threatening patients and clinics, and we got them on federal charges of violating FACE charges, which is a Federal Access to Clinic Entrances Act. And if they are convicted, that comes with a bunch of years in jail and a big fine. So, we're trying to keep people safe as much as we are, keep people informed and active.
So when you talk about using comedy for social change, you really mean it. And of course, that was a pivotal part of your idea for the concept of The Daily Show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was. I've always said that, the media is as complicit as these politicians, right? If you sit back and let them happen and you don't have a critical media, and especially when you have a corporate media, you're just not going to be an informed citizenry, right? And so watching how the media played fast and loose constantly and tried to get ratings and were just money-making juggernauts, not information hubs, I just thought, what if we did a comedy show that not only exposed them, but became them? And by looking just like them and acting just like them, we were able on The Daily Show to really show exactly what happens. And so when I created the show, most of our creative team was pulled out of actual mainstream media. They were sick of not being able to be real journalists. And I was like, come have some fun with us. Let's hold up a mirror to your folks. And it's a really great because it makes people feel like they're not alone, which I think is really key. Humor is a great tool for that. If you're laughing together, you still have hope. I always say, if you're still laughing, you haven't given up the fight yet. But also, it's a great way just to remind people to take a second look, find someplace else to look. Don't trust any one source, and because everybody has an agenda. And so you hope that it gives people, the option to do that. But now with the proliferation of so much information, it's harder and harder to cut through to get people a pathway to sanity.
Well, you've really changed the way that people look at the news, and that has to be very satisfying for you.
Well, it's a big spoonful of sugar, and then, wow, this is fun, and I'm learning something.
So,
Dan,
I
think sometimes that's the best way for folks to learn.
Dan and I were very big fans of the original Air America, and in fact, we had a radio show, Freethought Radio, eventually part of that played in about 30 cities, and we really miss it. It was so disappointing to see that fall apart. And I still think Air America should be credited for helping elect Barack Obama in his first election.
I
You
agree.
Because it provided that alternative to hate radio. Could you talk just a little bit about the heyday of your role in Air America, how you reflect on it now?
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious because it feels like, some of my greatest successes came in between projects and feeling very lost at what I'm going to do next. And so what happened was I was in Los Angeles. I had just finished a job that I hated, and I didn't know what to do. And I got a call from somebody in Atlanta who said, we got your number from Al Franken, and we're launching a progressive radio network, and we're looking for a Lizz Winstead type. And I was like, well, is there something wrong with me that you want somebody who's like me and not quite me? And they said, well, we just didn't think you would leave TV to do radio in New York. And I was like, are you offering me an opportunity to leave Los Angeles, come to New York, create a giant network full of progressives who are going to help make change? Count me in. And there's money? Yes. And so I was lucky enough to be part of the team. I was the senior vice president, and then I was the executive vice president of programming. So I got to help put all of those shows into place. I got to create a vision for talk radio that had never been done before. I mean, For those of you that don't know, 97% of all of the talk radio in the United States is hate radio, conservative leaning radio. And so it was this respite. And so it was only when we launched, it was one of the first streaming stations, and it broke a lot of people, it broke the internet. And then it was only on in like 5 local stations, Madison being one of them, Minneapolis, Madison, like it was very small on actual AM dials. And then it grew. And so it was really nice to have people like call in and say, I'm driving across country and the only radio station I ever listened to or heard was Rush Limbaugh. And now I'm hearing other people who are bringing this alternative way of thinking. And now I'm reevaluating everything I was ever taught. And I love that you loved being on Air America, because I think radio is like one of the most incredible mediums. It's so intimate. You're talking to listeners. You're really having a dialogue. You really have that opportunity to have time to talk and make change. And it's one of my favorite things that I've ever done in my whole career. Like Air America was key. It was just run by creepy grifters who stole money and were terrible.
Well, thank you for everything you've done to create The Daily Show, Air America, and now all your very vital advocacy for abortion rights, Liz. And I see you have a co-host or a guest.
I know. You might have heard my co-host. He was chiming in earlier saying that, he was saying screw the patriarchy and dog talk. I don't know if you could understand.
It
Smart
added some realism and the siren to the show today. Well, thanks for being...
What? You get a guest from Brooklyn, you're going to get dogs, sirens, who knows.
Thanks for being with us today, Lizz Winstead.
You're so welcome. Thank you. I can't wait to see you guys in the fall.
And thank you for watching Freethought Matters.
Because free thought matters.
Hi, I'm Steve Pinker. In my book, Enlightenment Now, I show that the world has become a better place as reason has been overcoming superstition and tribalism. But the values of the Enlightenment are under attack. That's why I'm a proud member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest association of free thinkers working to keep state and church separate. Please join me in supporting the Freedom from Religion Foundation to ensure that our government is driven not by religion, but by reason.